All right, welcome everyone. Great to be here today, August 31st, 2020, the last day of the 8th month of the year. Can't believe it disappeared. I feel so old saying this, but where did August go? I'm sure you guys are all saying the same thing. Thanks for joining me regardless. I'm Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager here, Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management, and at the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a sec to like or subscribe or share. And if you're watching on Facebook, or do the opposite. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. And if you're watching on Facebook, do the like and share and follow thing. All right, I got this. Let's bring in our guest today right away, Jessica Morehouse. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Jessica Morehouse, she's a speaker. She's also a financial counselor. She runs the Mo Money podcast. She's had I think 250 or something episodes. She's been on BNN Bloomberg, CTV, CBC, and a whole bunch of other places. We're thrilled to have you. She's from not so sunny Toronto, Ontario today. No, I don't know. Is it sunny out there?
It's actually really sunny today. It may not seem like it from my room because it's very dark, but it's very sunny outside.
I kind of woke up this morning and felt a little bit like winter was coming, maybe.
It is coming. That's why it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Winnipeg is a bit of a bleary, overcast day today from Portage in Maine. At 201 Portage, we come to you live. Let's go through the headlines today, Jessica. I don't know how closely you've been following the headlines, but the Dow was down about 112 points last I checked here. The S&P 500 was down as well. 226 points. The Dow was down. The S&P 500 down 8 points. The NASDAQ, on the other hand, has been rallying. That is mostly on the heels of Apple and Tesla. So they had a stock split today. So 5-for-1 split on Tesla. Crazy. It is up 12% today. It is a $2,500 valuation pre-stock split. Now it's $500 per share, and you now have 5 shares for every share you had a day ago or a week ago. That stock was at $100, five banger in 3 months. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Those cannabis stocks are starting to move a little bit, Jessica. You ever dabbled in any of those?
Well, I've got a few in my portfolio, that's for sure, yeah.
Okay. We're seeing the coronavirus updates. The U.S. tops 6 million cases today. The WHO warns against prematurely approving a vaccine. We've had virologists on the show here, and they've told me, and they've told us, virologists and epidemiologists, that it was not going to happen in 2020 due to the phase 3 requirement. Now, if they end up skipping the phase 3 requirement for a vaccine, perhaps we will see it in 2020. In Canada, the big news today, I think there were a couple big news. One is, Warren Buffett. So the GDP numbers came out. Before I get to Warren Buffett, the GDP numbers came out. Not sure if you followed that, but the GDP numbers came in at minus 11.5% for the quarter. So that's an annualized rate of roughly minus 40%. However, the good news was that June was the best month ever on record. So we had in the same quarter, we had the worst quarter ever and the best month ever, which seems like an oxymoron, but it happened right in the middle of COVID. Is that something you follow a little bit, the GDP numbers?
A little bit, just so I can kind of get a sense for what is happening right now, what's happening in the future. But I still am just kind of living my life day to day and not focusing too much on that because it makes me break out in hives.
All right, well, we don't want that. And I'll get to our host and her qualifications. But basically today, she's going to talk to us all about the financial advice that she gives to her clients, to millennials, to people wanting to start business, side hustles, budgeting, all sorts of really, really neat stuff. Social media influencing, public speaking, you name it. She's done it, and she's done it well. So we're really, really thrilled to have her here. I do follow the GDP numbers closely because, well, it's kind of a good indicator of what, usually a lagging indicator of what the stock market will do, but I digress. TikTok is in the news again because China is basically calling Trump's bluff on TikTok, saying, you know what, if you're not going to let it happen, they're basically calling the bluff. Warren Buffett announced over the weekend that he was investing in five Japanese companies as a global value trade. Warren Buffett has long been the value investor in North American equities, mostly U.S. equities. But he did buy portion of 5 Japanese companies, about 5% of each, I think, and a ton of buybacks, loaded up on buybacks, so buying up his own shares in the market. And the legal pot spending is beating. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, the legal pot spending beat the black market pot spending for the first time ever in Q2. This is a report from Stats Can, and it's as reported on BNN. So very interesting that now more people are buying legal cannabis than the street variety of the ganja. So Q2, first time that happened.
I think it makes a lot of sense when you think about what's going on in the world right now. People need to relax. And I mean, personally, I don't want to go in a street corner and talk to someone scary.
I had not thought of that. Yeah. So people, plus it's less contact, less, you don't want to, are they wearing masks when they're doing their transactions? I don't know.
Really, I have no idea, but it seems a lot safer to order from a legal company and get it shipped to your house.
I would agree. And finally, the last headline of the day was that Novavax agreed to supply Canada with up to 76 million COVID vaccine doses. Seeing that our population is less than half of that, I would imagine that they're anticipating a double dose, I would imagine, or they're expecting real big population growth over the next few years. No, I'm kidding. I'm guessing it's 2 doses per. So let's get into what you do. Tell me. So you quit your job when you were 30. So tell me about that, and tell me about what made you decide to do that and what you do now.
Yeah, I guess part of it, looking back, may have been a little bit of a life crisis. You turn 30 and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Am I happy? No, maybe we should do something radical, like quit my stable corporate job. And also at the same time, within a few months of turning 30, me and my husband bought our current townhouse because it was something that I felt like we needed to do before we turned 30. But it was, a lot of change happened when I turned 30, but ultimately I'm glad everything happened because it really kind of pushed me to do something I think for years I was scared to do, which was actually follow my passion, which oddly enough is in personal finance, which probably isn't a lot of people's passions. They're probably thinking of like, I'm going to become an artist or a musician. I'm like, no, I want to study personal finance. That's my passion. So I set up my business. I had been working for years on the side as kind of my side hustle, running my blog, my podcast on top of my day job, and started earning some money through advertising and influencer marketing and things like that, and realized maybe I can actually make a full-time job out of this if I did full-time hours dedicating to all of this. And so I handed in my notice after about 3 years at the company and haven't looked back since. So knock on wood, everything's okay.
You talk about how very few people have that personal passion. The story you just told could almost be interchanged for what I did in my life. I was
really?
Just before I was 30, I was working at a large corporate firm. I was a lawyer. I was a lawyer working at a legal firm.
I worked in a law firm.
There we go. Wow.
Okay. That's crazy. I wasn't a lawyer,
my passion was helping people with their personal finances as well. And I wanted to start my own business, and I started the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group. And as you just said, I've never looked back. So tell me about what you do now and what you focus on.
Yeah. So at the beginning of my first year of business, I was trying to figure out like, what exactly is this business? And so it's evolved a lot since then. I dedicated that first year to getting some credentials to become an accredited financial counselor. And so I'm really glad about that. So that's another element of my business. I work with clients one-on-one as a financial counselor. I still have my blog, my YouTube channel. I'm starting to really focus on podcast, of course, and still do influencer stuff. I also do public speaking. I sell a couple online courses for some kind of passive income. I also sell some kind of digital products on my website. What else do we have? Wrote them down. No, and I also have an event series that I've been doing since 2016 called the Millennial Money Meetup. So I do that once or twice a year.
Okay, so the stuff that you do, is it mostly geared towards millennials?
Yes, just mainly because when I kind of developed my brand, I'm like, well, I guess I kind of want to talk to people that are in similar situations as me. But what's interesting is I don't kind of like, even though most of the content I create, it's like as if I'm talking to a millennial, I think it's hitting a lot of different people at different ages, because I find out that lots of my audience is actually, Gen X or even baby boomers. And sometimes they're like, I'm sorry for writing, I know I'm probably older than your audience. I'm like, well, I guess that's actually like the content I create is for everybody. But I really wanted to kind of focus on that millennial generation and now the younger generation behind us, because I feel like a lot of us, have a sense of what we're supposed to do to become an adult, but there's so many gaps, especially when it comes to financial literacy. And I want to be there as someone who's not that typical person that you see who's working for like an investment firm or in a suit. I'm just, me, Jessica, kind of, someone maybe more relatable, and but it can talk about finance in maybe a little bit more of an understandable way.
So the accreditation that you got, which one? What is it called again?
It's called the Accredited Financial Consellor Canada certification.
And that's like for kind of one-on-one financial counseling to other individuals.
Yeah, I decided on that designation to start off with. I'm probably going to continue my education. I'm currently studying for some other things, but just because it really spoke to me. It's basically marries financial planning with also counseling, which I think a lot of people, especially a lot of my audience members, really need that kind of counseling aspect where they just want to be heard and they want to not have so much judgment, and they kind of need that a little bit of, not that I'm a therapist, but a little bit of that kind of therapy session mixed in with the financial planning. So that's what really spoke to me, and so that's why I did that program.
Yeah, it's been, for me, talking to clients over the last 6-8 months, it's been I feel like it's been a lot more important than ever before to that part about counseling. It's actually like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's really happening in your life right now? And I think it's important. So good on you for doing that.
Yeah.
You talked about your passion. You wanted to follow your passion. How did you know that this was your passion? How did you know you'd be good at it? Because it's a bit of a leap, right? It's like from a law firm to, like, it's a jump, right?
Well, I've done some bigger leaps. I studied film production in university, and so I thought I was going to work in the film industry, and did not at all. I took a left turn right after university, got a job in sales and marketing, and worked in that industry for years, and thought that marketing was the thing that I wanted to do. I mean, it's been very helpful running my own business, understanding the marketing side of things. But I think the whole time I was working different jobs, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. When I kind of think of the big picture of my life and like, what's my purpose on earth and what do I want to accomplish, I always come back to this idea of just want to help people. And I always had a hard time figuring out, how can I actually do that? And for me, I found a lot of value from books and blogs and other people I've met who are experts in the field of finance. It's really affected my life in such a positive way, learning all of this stuff. And so then it kind of was a light bulb moment. Maybe I should try to do this as my job and actually do this, as this is your way to help people. And so I took a leap of faith. Of course, I had a very cushy emergency fund after I quit my job, just in case things didn't work out and I had to find another job. But luckily, things have worked out.
And it was already going, right? You already had some shows. You had a proven model.
I started it on the side. So there was kind of the evidence that I think there's a very good chance this is going to work out, but you also just never know. And being a millennial who graduated during the recession, I'm always like on the lookout or just like waiting for something bad to happen. And so honestly, when the pandemic happened, I'm like, I've been here before. I've been preparing for this for years. And then I think that's probably why it didn't affect me like emotionally as much as it could have been, because I've been preparing for something bad to happen for a while.
Would you call yourself an influencer or a digital media influencer or social influencer?
I don't like that term, because it definitely, when you think of influencer, you typically think of some girl on Instagram selling gummy bear hair things or something like that. I'm like, that's so not what I do. But I guess that's kind of the term.
Gummy bear hairs?
I don't even, we're on different Instagrams. I'll just tell you that right now. But there's girls that are selling gummy bears that are supposed to help you grow your hair. We'll go into that. Okay. But
Instagram?
I guess Instagram.
No, I'm kidding. I know what Instagram is. Yeah. I do know what that is.
But I guess that's kind of the term for, I started doing it before that was even really a term. But basically, it's just, I have different platforms where I create content. Brands want to utilize me to, amplify whatever that they want, their messaging, their product, their service. and I create content kind of working with them in partnership. So I've been doing that for a number of years, and it's an interesting part of my business. It's definitely evolved a lot, because honestly, when I first started kind of doing this several years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there is, at least in the personal finance community, there was definitely a lot of people that just didn't think that was right or okay. It's like, how can you, share your opinion and also get paid by a company? And luckily, that's kind of shifted. And there's lots of things you can do to maintain your credibility, which I have for a number of years. But influencership, a lot of people thought it was going to be a fad, but it's actually a big marketing vehicle now.
Let's talk about some of the advice that you give and see kind of regularly. So you come across, you work with individuals, probably young couples, I would imagine, or young individuals. What are some of the stuff that people come to see you for? First, let me start with that.
I'd say like the biggest section of the clients that I work with are actually individuals, and a lot of them are millennials, either men or women. Typically women. I work with a lot of women, and a big reason that they come to me is they find themselves kind of in the spot that I was probably when I was at 30, and realize, I'm making okay money, and I feel like I've checked off a lot of that kind of adult, checklist. I live in the city, I've got a good job, I got my degree, but I have no idea what I'm doing with my money, and I feel like time is just going by so fast, and I'm terrified of making a mistake, and I just need someone to guide me. I need some guidance. And so that's what we kind of do together. We take a good look at what do they want, what are their goals, and figure out how can we achieve those goals through saving, budgeting, paying down debt, and investing.
What are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see or have seen with some of your clients, or just millennials generally?
I'd say the biggest one is not recognizing that you need to take control of your finances. A lot of people, and this is something that I used to think in my early 20s, that, oh, I think you're just supposed to hire somebody and they just deal with it all for you. And as you kind of learn more, well, you still have to be very much involved in your own finances. So you can hire somebody, but they're not going to work on your budget. Like, you have to make sure you're on budget, that you're making good spending decisions, that you're basically responsible for your own financial life. And that's kind of a big thing that I think a lot of people may not recognize, or when they recognize it, they're terrified that they've missed the boat, that's too late for them. And that's another thing I hear. They're like, is it too late for me? It's like, never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can always pivot and change course.
I sometimes start working with individuals that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s that are kind of just, now figuring out that they need advice, they need planning, they're starting to save, something's happened in their life that they're no longer in the same spot they were before. And I always tell them the exact same thing. It is absolutely never too late to start looking at that budgeting, saving, and investing, for sure. So you work with these, you work with the millennials. I'll keep calling them millennials because I think that's what I see. That's what I see all over your blog and all over your website.
Oh, yeah.
So do you sometimes wish, and maybe this is my pet peeve, and this is probably a rant I've done before, do you sometimes wish there was a better kind of foundation at the high school level, or even before that, to help all of us Canadians to be better when we're adults?
100%. I feel like there should definitely be more programming in high school. No one talked to me about money in high school. I entered college or university, and I didn't know what a checking account was. How was I like smart enough to get to university and get, pretty good grades and not know what a checking account was? This is crazy. I feel like lots of this stuff could be integrated into math. A lot of the scenarios integrate some sort of, personal finance element to it so that you have context. Or just make sure that there's some sort of programming in high school, and talk about things that are relevant to kids. Because I was working in high school, I was making money, I was saving money, but I didn't really. I don't know if I was responsible as I could have been had there been more education. And then same in college, there was absolutely nothing in college that I knew of. And so for me, it wasn't until I graduated university and then was kind of shocked to be like, oh, like how do I like find an apartment by myself? What's a credit score? How do I get, there's all these questions that kind of, hit you all at once when you're like, okay, you're off on your own. And it was very intimidating. And I was lucky in that I did have an older sister, 3 years older than me, and she started educating herself, reading personal finance blogs. And that's how I honestly found out about the world of personal finance. If it weren't for her, I think it would have been years later that I would have picked up The Wealthy Barber, like everybody's read, and kind of, started their kind of personal finance journey. So I feel like this definitely needs to be part of the conversation a lot earlier.
You think everyone's read it, but way less people than you thought have read it.
That's
I
true.
can
That's
guarantee
true.
that. We need more people to read it. So yeah, I think being the younger sibling is definitely a plus. I was the youngest of three. My brother Charlie and my sister Tanya were always kind of in the space ahead of me, and they were always teaching me things. But I mean, I remember in high school, I took an entrepreneurship course where I had to, in a small rural school in Le Brocquerie, Manitoba, I call it Saint-Joachim. And we had to like create our own business, and we had to actually take it through and get some actual revenue. And we had a ping pong, not ping pong, what are they called? A picnic table. We created picnic tables, and we sold them. We had to figure out pricing. We had to figure out what it would cost us, and labor and marketing. And well, I knew how to do that, but I didn't even know, how to open a bank account, right? And I was learning that. So I was like, okay, they're trying to teach kids how to start a business, which is fantastic, great. But let's have something somewhere. And I think math is it's a good idea. Maybe someday when you're prime minister, you can get that changed.
I never want that job. I'll tell you that right now. But thank you.
Kidding.
I'll take that as a compliment.
So let's go back to the advice piece that you give, and on the budgeting side. So what are some of the big piece of advice that you've given to young millennials for budgeting, just strictly budgeting?
Yeah, what's so interesting? I used to kind of hate the word budgeting. I always budgeted as soon as I kind of figured out, hey, you need to do this in order to have clarity with your money. I always had a spreadsheet since like 2010 is when I started doing that. And I tried lots of different things. And at a certain point, I did feel really restricted and didn't really like what I was doing. And then I've, over the years, kind of evolved kind of my strategy. And what I usually say to most people when I bring up, we have to make a budget together, they're usually very resistant because they think a budget means they have to stop doing some things they really like to do with their money. They're going to have to make some sacrifices. It's very negative connotations when it comes to budgeting. So I usually like to reframe it in a couple ways. Maybe instead of calling it a budget, call it a spending plan. It's really just for you to outline, okay, let's figure out what is your net income so we know how much money we're playing with and where do you want it to go. And then it's really up to you to decide where you want it to go. Do you want to go to savings, and what kind of savings goals do you have? And I usually start with the goals part because it's way more exciting than talking about expenses. It's like, these are fun things like going on a trip, a wedding, down payment, retirement, all those kinds of things. And then breaking down your different, expenses into fixed and variable. But when I create that with the client, the really important thing, especially with your variable expenses, and I think a lot of people think of budgeting as you really have to categorize things. So you can only spend this amount on groceries, this amount on eating out, and this and that. Usually what I do is like, let's look at your spending so we can get some real numbers, see what we need to actually fix. Maybe there's you're overspending in some areas based off some averages that I see. And then let's give you, in those categories, some kind of loose amount, but really it's just figuring out how much should we allocate to all of your variable expenses, and just don't spend more than like $700 or whatever is the amount. It's getting away from this itemized way of budgeting because it just doesn't work for people. We don't live and spend that way, and switching it up. And also, I think what's really important for people to realize is a budget can be in so many different ways. Like the budget, system that I create works for a lot of people. There's lots of other budgeting ways that may work better for you. So it's all about trying different things and seeing what actually sticks.
Great advice. Guys, reminder, I'm here with Jessica Morehouse from the blog Mo Money Podcast, the Mo Money Podcast blog. She's a financial counselor. Great to have her here today. If you're watching on YouTube, please take a sec to subscribe to our, YouTube, subscribe. I know this.
Yeah, you subscribe.
Subscribe. Facebook is like and share. We'd love to hear your comments. We got some viewers that are sending us some comments today, so thank you for doing that. Let's talk further a little bit about the budgeting or the spending plan, as you call it. Do you recommend using software or apps for that, or you just kind of start with a pen and paper or an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am a big spreadsheet person. I love a good spreadsheet. So that is kind of what I use with my clients. And we usually use a Google Sheets spreadsheet instead of Excel, so we can share it. And I think that's also great too, if you have a partner that you're budgeting with, you can create a Google Sheet spreadsheet and you could both have access to it at the same time. So super nerdy, but me and my husband do this. We have our own budget spreadsheet. It's in, Google Sheets in our Google folder. And so every month we have a little sit down, input our spending numbers, input our net worth numbers, and have a little money meeting. And we both are on our laptops and we just kind of go over, okay, what's going on here. And then when we're done the meeting, we've made our decisions or we've had our conversations about what's going on with our finances, then we shut the laptops and we're good to go. We don't really have to talk about money that much because we had that conversation. So for going back to your question about should you use a spreadsheet or something else, it really depends on what you want to do. I've had lots of clients who are like, I really like using the program YNAB. You need a budget. I just like it. It works for me. I'm like, cool. And you do not have to use my budget spreadsheet if you want to use something else. Whatever actually will motivate you and actually get you results, that's what you should be using.
What about the couples? What about the individual who tell you, yeah, but Jessica, I need someone to not, I need my spouse to not know about X, Y, or Z. We need to have our own little discretionary sum where I can go,
Right.
buy Magic the Gathering cards and she can go buy whatever she's buying and we don't have to know what we're spending on that because we don't want each other to know what we're spending on that. Is that good advice, or what would you say to
Well,
that?
I think there's nothing wrong with, and that's a great point. When it comes to budgeting as a partnership, a couple, again, there's so many different ways you can do it. You can put all of your money together, or you can keep it completely separate, or you can do a mixture of the both, which is what me and my husband have done for years, where we have a couple, joint accounts. We have a joint savings account for some of our joint savings goals like travel and stuff like that, joint checking for our joint bills, and a joint credit card for some of our expenses. Otherwise, everything is separate. But we still share all of our numbers. And what's important is we don't really come into that budgeting meeting with no judgment. So this is my money, that's your money. We can take a look, but it's really not up to me to place judgment on what he chooses to spend his money on. Same, with my spending. And that's been really good because it gives us freedom. And then you don't want to hide anything, because I feel like that can be a dangerous road, that kind of element of secrecy. At least for, my relationship, no, we got no secrets, and it's nice. Transparency is very important, I think. So I'd say there's nothing wrong with having independence. Secrecy, that might be an issue. That may be where some arguments happen.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in transparency as well. And in our household, it is joint. It has been for a while, so she knows exactly where my hard-earned dollars are going, and as embarrassing as some video game purchases are, or whatever they may be. But it's transparent, right? So I'm a big fan of that. But I also understand the couples that want to keep a certain percentage of the budget separate. In your videos and in your blogs, you talk a lot about the kind of steps that people need to take to try to get their financial life in order. So let's imagine someone who's struggling with either serious debt or extremely indebted, or who's got the creditors calling, or how do you start with that person? What do you typically start? And I mean, I imagine you'd say, start by figuring out what you can save and paying off the highest debt first, and consolidate if you can, or I don't know. I'm all ears.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a mixture. So we typically take a look at what is going on with your money now. So I want to see your net worth. I want to see where all your debts are, what's in your savings accounts, what's your investments. Let's see where your money is right now. And then we take a look at what is your actual cost of living. Let's find out, let's build that budget so we have a sense of what kind of expenses do you have, and where money needs to go. And then we take a look at what are your goals, and figuring out where should we save and invest, ideal situation. We may not focus on those, but we should lay those out so we have some kind of direction. And then we take a look at all of this information, and we see what should we prioritize. And sometimes it's ultimately up to the client, but usually it's pretty clear. We need to focus on building an emergency fund, or we need to focus, because you already have that emergency fund, we need to focus on creating a debt repayment plan so we can get you out of debt sooner. Or maybe it's, well, you don't have any debt, you've got an emergency fund, but you feel like you're just not saving enough. You need to figure out a better strategy so you can save for your short-term goals and for your long-term goals. So it really kind of depends on the information we get, and also what do they want in life.
How do you feel about different types of debt? For example, debt on a house. How do you feel about owning a house versus renting?
I like it, but it sure is expensive. I mean, I think one thing that
Not in
people,
Winnipeg.
well, not in Winnipeg. I know. I should have bought there. But what I'd say about the expensive part is just being the homeowner, maintaining a home, depending on what kind of home you have. I mean, my experience, we've been in our place for 4 years and every major appliance is broken down. That's expensive. So that's something that we had to save up for because these things happen. As a renter, you don't have to worry about that. You can call your landlord and they fix it for you. So there's some benefits of being a renter that I definitely miss, but I do ultimately like being a homeowner. I feel, more kind of settled in, our community and just like having our own space. But in terms of like a mortgage, I don't personally understand. I see a lot of people, they have this need to become mortgage free as soon as possible. And because we've been in such a low interest market for so long, I don't understand why people would want to pay off their mortgage sooner when you can probably make so much more money, build your wealth so much quicker if you were to invest that money. And that could be just, again, that's just my personal take on it because I've never really been into in debt or consumer debt. I had a student loan once. I was able to pay it off pretty quickly. And then I was debt free for a long time until we got our mortgage. So I don't have this kind of hatred towards debt. Whereas I think a lot of people that may have had situations where they were in debt in different times in their lives, they just see all debt as bad and they don't want it in their life. And so they want to pay it off as soon as possible. So, and then that's also up to you, as long as you understand the risks that are actually involved in paying down your mortgage quicker than actually investing that money instead.
What I feel I notice is with my clients anyways, is anyone who went through 80, 81, 82, the kind of aggressive spike in interest rates, and they were a homeowner back then, and maybe they had stretched themselves out too thin. They were perhaps on a variable loan back then, or maybe their mortgage came due and they had to renew at 18%. And you just can't afford to keep your home. Those are generally the types of individuals that are wanting to get rid of their debt, whereby someone like me who's always seen 5% less debt forever is less likely to be considering that interest rates could like wipe someone out. So I think that's a big thing. And I think I think you're right with the interest rates. And by the way, if you're wondering who to go see for an investment strategy that could dramatically beat those interest rates, go to www.speaktorob.com. We'd be happy to book a no obligation consultation with you. As our viewers know, portfolio manager here, award winning. We'd love to help you out, build you a portfolio that could well exceed the returns that you're paying on your debt. Wouldn't you say though that paying down debt comes to base at the end of the day, it's basically emotions. It's basically how you feel about going to bed at night every night, knowing that a portion of your house is not fully paid off, and how you feel about that moment when that debt is gone. Because mathematically, we all know it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's such an important element. Like when I work with a client and we're figuring out, okay, what do we want to do on a consistent basis? We want you to have that budget. We want you to review it regularly. We want you to track your spending so you know where your money's going. And you need to track your net worth, because I feel like without that element, you may not realize, oh, wow, actually, my net worth has increased because I'm not aggressively paying down my debt. And I'm talking about low interest debt, not high interest debt. And I'm investing my money. And so sometimes that seeing your net worth grow because you've made certain decisions will keep you confirm that you're doing maybe the right thing for you, and will be that extra motivation. That's at least for me. Like I definitely want to pay off my mortgage quicker than we're currently doing. Sure, why not? But also, I like to see those gains in my investment portfolio because it's increasing my net worth more than me paying off my mortgage quicker. But like you said, there's so much emotions involved. And that's why, when I am working with someone, I'll give them the information. I'll kind of tell them the risks, the things that they need to know. But ultimately, personal finance is personal. So it's really important for you to make the right decision for you and not let anyone sway you one way or the other if you don't feel like that's what you want to do.
Yeah, debt is certainly that's certainly a tough one and an emotional one for sure. And
Yeah.
we're seeing all-time low interest rates. We're seeing the best opportunity in a while to make money on the spread. What the markets have returned versus what the interest rates are on a cost benefit side. So the math is certainly one thing, but then the emotional burden of having the debt is certainly another. You talked earlier about credit scores, putting debt off to the side. Right? Actually, maybe you'll say that it's quite intrinsically linked. How do you feel about tips for improving credit scores for young millennials?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. And I think a lot of people think there's a lot of mystery surrounding credit scores, and it's so disappointing to say it's not that mysterious. It's just be responsible with any kind of debt, credit that you have. Pay your phone bill on time, pay your mortgage on time, never miss a payment, and be responsible. Of course, there's a couple, tips here and there, but I feel like a lot of people think that there's some secrecy, or there's a lot of scammy companies that say, I can fix your credit score overnight, which is absolutely not possible. And so like the boring truth is, if you want to improve your credit score, and I have like a best practices kind of download on my website. It's just about being responsible with credit and being consistent with that kind of responsible, habits that you're creating, and just time and patience will kind of help you out.
You were talking earlier about saving and kind of what that saving looks like. A lot of times the millennials will feel that because they're, so young, or there might be a misconception about an RSP or a TFSA saving. I've seen, if you're a successful young millennial with a very high income and you're able to actually save money, instead of paying down debt, an RSP contribution could make a ton of sense. Or perhaps you're low income now, but you expect or anticipate to get raises or higher income once you graduate, or whatever it may be. That TFSA, the tax-free savings account, can be a fantastic place for you to grow and compound tax-free, while, not having to worry about if you're saving or if you're paying down your debt. You're only making very little on that. So another area, do you have a comment on the RSP or the TFSA, or that debate, or what you see in your clients?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the TFSA for investing. The sad thing is, and I get this all the time, millennials, I think, and just anybody really, a lot of them don't know that a TFSA is not just a savings account, right?
Yeah.
And it's wild. And I mean,
They screwed up
when I was in my 20s. They screwed up. Honestly, I was thinking about this today. I'm like, they should have named it like a tax-free growth account or something like that.
Tax-free investment account. That's what I would have named it personally.
Yeah.
I've done this rant a few times, and some of the viewers may be sick and tired of hearing me say it, but we did our young Canadians a huge disservice. All Canadians. So many Canadians have term deposits in their tax-free savings account, and they're making 2% tax-free. Well, 2% tax-free, the tax that you would have paid on a $5,000 contribution annually, after tax, it's like a lunch. You're saving like a lunch on taxes. So
I know
it's embarrassing that they named it that. But anyways, I totally interrupted you. You're going to say that.
No. I 100% feel what you're feeling. I can't stand that they, it was just bad marketing, really. Whoever made that decision was bad marketing. But I think, like you said, a TFSA is such a great place to put your investments. Like when I started investing in 2010, it was very new and I had no idea what it was for. And so I just put cash in it like everybody else, and just really focused on my RSP, because I thought that was the only way that you could grow your wealth in a tax efficient way. But I love my RSP. I especially as someone who's self-employed, it's great, tax saver for me. But I also love my TFSA. It's great because you get more flexibility. Like for me, when I put something in my RSP, I am not touching it until I retire. So it is almost, in my mind, locked in, not touching it. But for my TFSA, I was just having a conversation with someone today about, I have this one TFSA and I didn't really have a specific goal for it besides wealth building. But I'm like, I guess it's retirement. I don't know. I already have a retirement account, and with that account alone, with my contributions, I'll actually make the amount that I want for my retirement right now. So I don't really know what actually my TFSA is doing, but it's growing tax-free and it's done pretty well over the years. So it's interesting now figuring out, what should I actually do? There's no tax consequences if I take that money out. And that's actually kind of nice.
If some of the viewers want to learn more about that, I got a ton of videos on our YouTube channel, RSP, TFSA, the RSP versus TFSA debate, the RSP versus our DSP debate. Anyways, all sorts of neat videos on that. Feel free to check out our page. What do you own in your TFSA these days, investment-wise?
Well, I'm a passive investor. So it really, in my TFSA, there's a couple different things. I've got one portfolio in my TFSA that is just a passive portfolio of low-cost ETFs. And then I have one for some Canadian stocks, so some dividend stocks, some growth stocks. And then my RSP is, I've got my main portfolio for retirement is also in a passive portfolio of ETFs. And then I have part of my RSP for other stocks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about COVID real quick. Reminder, folks, my name is Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager here at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and at the Tatro Wealth Advisory Group. I'm here live today with Jessica Morehouse from Mo Money Podcast. She's a financial counselor. She's telling us about tips. Let's talk about COVID and kind of what's happened to yourself, your industry, what you see happening. Maybe we start with what's happened to yourself and your industry, because I imagine there's a lot of people trying to do what you do right now, or maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know if people are trying to do what I do. I haven't really noticed that, but I'm okay if that's what they want to do. That's great.
Maybe not necessarily in your specific, like a financial counselor or your specific field, but like just trying to reach more consumers online via digital marketing ways or via podcasts or whatever it may be.
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing. When everything kind of shut down and we all had to just stay in our homes, my business wasn't like technically affected because my whole business is run virtually. So it wasn't a big shift for me. What I was doing in my business definitely was a big shift. I mean, a lot of my public speaking work, I mean, all of it was canceled, of course. And basically in March, there was a time where every kind of project or work thing that I had booked was canceled. So I had zero income coming in, and it was terrifying. But also it was like, I've been here before. I've had lots of ups and downs in my career. There's been lots of bouts of unemployment. I can deal with this. It's okay. We're good at this. I'm good at survival mode if I need to be. And so I definitely we're like, okay, if we're going to be real frugal, I got this. I lived off nothing in my 20s. I got this. Luckily though, things did kind of improve because I shifted my focus less on obviously speaking and kind of influencer stuff, and just kind of doubled down on being like, hey, I'm a financial counselor. If anyone wants to book with me, you can book with me. And so I've been focusing more on that, on my online courses, on I developed a bunch of budget spreadsheets people can download on my website, and also took most of this time this summer to study to finally get that Canadian securities course done, because bought it 2 years ago, haven't finished it. So I'm like, you know what? There's no excuse this summer. You have no plans.
Okay, so do you see anything kind of changing in the do you see any significant market disruptions that are going to happen as of COVID, or do you think life will get back to normal? And
I don't think life will get back to normal. I pretend like that's what's going to happen because I like to be hopeful, but I don't think so. I mean, it's so impossible to say. I personally thought then when everything shut down in March, this was the sign. I'm like, things are going to get really, really bad. And then somehow they kind of improved. I mean, not for everybody. It depends on your particular situation. If you lost your job, there's lots of bad things that affected a lot of people. But in terms of like the stock market, makes no sense to me. And so for me, I kind of think that things are just delayed and things will decline, or things will kind of look a bit bad. And also depending on what's going on in the US, it's anyone's guess, but I'm bracing for something the other shoe to fall or whatever. And that's me just being like pessimistic as a way to, self-preserve and just hold on to the sanity I have right now.
Expect the worst, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because then you won't be disappointed.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks so much, Jessica. Anything else that you'd like to add that I missed to ask you today that I should have covered and I missed?
Or tips or anything?
Yeah, we have. It was definitely a wide.
My overall messaging to whenever I'm on a show is hopefully I'll just motivate people to not be afraid to dive in, pick up a book, read a blog, listen to a podcast. It doesn't matter where you're at in your financial life. It's never too late. And also reminding people my story. I didn't come from a business background or a finance background. I have a film degree that is completely useless. And
you're doing these videos.
True, but it's, I came from the opposite spectrum. I was like, I have a fine arts degree. And so for me to kind of go in this weird direction, and a lot of it was self-taught and just picking up books and reading by myself, anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. You just have to motivate yourself. And I think one great thing that I've found is being part of different, online communities that talk about this. So you can find that group that actually wants to talk about money if your family, friends don't want to talk about it.
Very good advice. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I'm Rob Tatro from robtatro.com, portfolio manager here, Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management. Next weekend is a long weekend, so that means a no Tatro show on the Monday. The weekend after, we're bringing an analyst here from Canaccord Genuity, Tanya Gonsalves. So Tanya is one of our top analysts here at the firm. Really, really thrilled to have gotten her. She'll be on the show Monday, September 14th. She is a CFA. She's a chartered financial analyst, and she covers a whole bunch of different stocks that we will ask her about. So thrilled to have her on the show. Guys, gals, if you're watching, go on YouTube, take a sec to subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like, a share, or a follow. And by all means, tune in next week or the week after, since there is no show next week. Jessica, thanks so much for being here today. Really, really thankful to have you guys on. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Have a good one.